Coming home late at night can sometimes be terrifying, especially when it's raining so hard that the wipers can barely cope with their work. And then there's fog as well. But that didn't deter the hero of the story. Dave was driving from the guests about midnight, when in the pitch darkness he recognized a girl shivering from the cold on the roadside. Like a true gentleman, he stopped and asked, "How about a ride?" The girl agreed and got into the front seat. The poor girl still could not get warm, and the young man offered her his jacket. Word by word, the time on the road flew by unnoticed. She was not only talkative, but also very beautiful. Dave thought he would like to see her again. When he reached the stranger's house, he went out to gallantly open the door, but the girl was quicker than him. The door was already open, and she was gone. Had she run into the house so quickly? And he didn't even ask her name. The next day Dave remembered that the beautiful stranger had disappeared with his jacket. Here was another reason to see her again. The young man remembered the way to the girl's house perfectly well, and it was not difficult to get there. However, the door was opened to him by an elderly woman. She told him that her daughter no longer lived here. She had died in a car accident a few years ago and was buried in a cemetery not far from the house. Her jacket was hanging on the headstone. The picture was of the same stranger Dave had met on a rainy night. When it's pouring like a bucket outside, she sometimes appears on the side of the road and votes, but disappears when the driver passes her final resting place. Her home is there now. There are many stories about the Kapchigai Highway. They say it is built on a cemetery, so there are many accidents here. But most of the legends are about a girl in white who votes on the side of the road. Allegedly, she's the reason why accidents happen. Many people have heard the ominous clatter of her hooves before an accident. Alex was a big drinker in his youth. Even got behind the wheel after a couple of beers. This, of course, doesn't make him look good, but after one incident he never drank another gram. Late one night he was driving from another town, drunk. Suddenly he sees a girl voting on the highway. And she's so pretty, it's a sin not to pick her up. "Let me give you a ride, beautiful," he said, and she was happy to climb into the warm interior of the car. She was having fun, talking non-stop. Suddenly Alex's gaze went downward. What he saw made him sober up in a flash. The girl had goat hooves sticking out from under her skirt. At first he couldn't believe his eyes, but he looked closer and it was really them. I must give the young man credit, he didn't give the impression that he was frightened. Instead, he slowed down and asked the girl to see what was wrong with the front headlight. He thought it didn't seem to be on. Belle believed and got out of the car, and he immediately gave the gas. But he could not breathe a sigh of relief. The girl on her hooves could accelerate no worse than the car and chased him all the way home, and then cut circles around the car. She must have liked him a lot. Having parked near the house, Alex lost consciousness. When he woke up in the morning, she was gone. I was once hitchhiking between Tomsk and Kemerovo. In which direction, I don't remember. I didn't have much luck catching cars, and it was getting late in the evening. On the highway at night, after all, not like in the daytime, there's little chance that something may happen, not necessarily mystical, but nevertheless, unpleasant. While I was thinking like that, a car stopped a little ahead. I lightly trot down, and, thanking the driver from the heart, I sank into a cozy seat with incredible pleasure. We exchanged a few phrases with the driver. I didn't ask his name, that's why I'll call him that, and then we drove in silence. It seems that the driver was tired on the road. He slowed down the speed, turned the radio on and turned it off without finding anything. And I was sitting there, thinking about the acquaintances from whom I was traveling, about the girl. In general, I thought about something and, half asleep, looked at the light spot from the headlights, periodically picking out bright road signs from the darkness. There had been no oncoming cars for a long time, the sky was light only far away, and here the night had already descended over us. I look at this yellow spot on the road and, probably, I have been sleeping for a long time. Because I saw a gray figure far ahead on the road. Gradually increasing figure stood on our side. The car did not slow down, even, it seems, increased. Without turning my head, I looked at the driver. His face was frowning, his eyelids were half-lidded, but he was obviously awake. I looked again at the figure. I could already see that it was a man in a gray cloak, and something dark on his head. He was facing us. I already began to fidget in my chair, gaining air to say something, but right in front of the hood, the men disappeared. No knocking, no detour maneuver, there was nothing, the car was going straight ahead. I feel instantly sweaty, I'm sitting there, I don't move. The driver's silent, I'm silent too. After all, the figure, I think, I dreamed, and before the collision I must have woken up. In general, I decided to keep silent, why the driver should be disturbed by his dreams. A few minutes later the car slowed down and gently pulled over to the side of the road. We stopped, turned off the engine, and the driver got out. So did I. He stared back at the road, quietly and deeply inhaling the cool night air. Then he said in a noticeably hoarse voice, "A couple of months ago a bus overturned here, people died, and now they're walking like this. It's not the first time I've seen it. Let's go, it's better." I silently got into the car and we moved on. I never slept again that night. I only remember owls, many owls, sitting on the road, our headlights glinting in their eyes. A few years ago my friends and I were traveling to a church camp, late November, dusk, and we knew the way only from the descriptions of our acquaintance. At the very end of the road we accidentally took a wrong turn, but we didn't realize it right away. The road led into a deep forest, and we were sure that this was the place where our tent camp should be. After a while we passed a huge stone gate with wrought iron doors that looked like the entrance to a cemetery, but there were no paths beyond the gate, just dark woods. There was no fence either, just a huge stone gate. We didn't pay much attention to it, though the place was strange, and continued on our way. The fog was thickening, we entered a village, and then the most inexplicable thing began. The first house on our way was at first sight the most ordinary. But then we noticed that next to it there was a car with its emergency lights on, all the doors were open. There was no one in or near the car. The lights in the house were off. We slowed down to see if something was wrong, but then my friend pointed ahead. All the houses on both sides of the road looked exactly the same. Dark houses, all the cars on emergency brake lights and with their doors open. We never saw a single person around. It all seemed like some kind of very strange prank. We continued driving on the same road to get out of this place as fast as possible. Suddenly a huge black dog like a German shepherd jumped out of the corner. It ran after us at full speed and barked loudly. After that, our driver turned sharply and drove away from the village. We never went back there again. Later I tried to understand where we had turned and to find this place on the map, but nothing worked. Even on the satellite view, I couldn't find that road.